You're listening to Morning Report. And after weeks of speculation, it's been confirmed that former US President Barack Obama will visit New Zealand next month. The New Zealand-United States Council says Mr. Obama will speak at an event it's organising in Auckland on March the 22nd. During his 3-day visit, Mr. Obama will meet Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern and reportedly play a round of golf with Sir John Key. The Council's chair, Leon Grice, is with me in the Wellington studio. Good morning.
Morena.
So here for just 3 days, a bit of a whistle-stop tour.
Yeah, that's so in terms of his program, that's quite a lot, because he really is packing a lot in his post-presidency. And he's travelling all over the place. So we just needed to find the window, and we pushed for as long as we could get, and 3 days is pretty good. OK, what's he going to be doing then, apart from giving this speech at the event you're organising? Well, that starts now, really. So once we organised the speech and we knew roughly the amount of time that he was going to be in New Zealand, it's a private visit. So now we're going to start working with his private office about the things that are important to him, both in terms of some time off, but also in terms of the things that are important to him and what he's pushing in his post-presidency. OK, what sort of things then is he particularly wanting to focus on, do you know? Well, in New Zealand we haven't had that discussion, but I think if you look at the majority of his focus in the US and around the world is on youth leadership and particularly diversity issues around leadership and pushing those agenda. And so in Chicago, for example, he's not building a library. It has got elements of of a library, but he's building a youth development centre in Chicago. So those are the things that I think that are important to him, and so those are the things that we will try and identify opportunities for him to engage with when he's here. OK, so it's an invitation-only event that he's going to be speaking at. So how do you decide who to invite? That's very difficult. We are going to make sure that we have as broad a section of New Zealand society as we can get there. And that's what the council's focused on. So for the tickets that we've been allocated across the sponsors group, so Air New Zealand, we're totally involved from the beginning, and it was a team effort working with Air New Zealand, and they brought on Mastercard and Westpac. So they'll be inviting their guests, but I know Air New Zealand has similar goals that we do, is to make sure that youth leadership, business leaders, Māori business leaders, and the full gamut of New Zealand society can come. So you're saying that Air New Zealand really is one of the key players here. Who is it in that case who is bankrolling this trip? The three sponsors joined together, and so that's Air New Zealand, Mastercard, and Westpac. Yeah, for the two speeches, one in Auckland and one in Sydney. Okay, and so for the New Zealand part of this, I think it's $400,000 US is Barack Obama's speaking fee, or that sort of region. What sort of amount of money are you actually talking about that this visit to New Zealand is costing? It's completely confidential. We're in terms of getting to the agreement, we've committed to complete confidentiality on the number. But serious amount of money, yes? Yeah, it's a big commitment to get him down here. Okay, and so 400,000 at least is in the right sort of ballpark, or I can't comment. Or is that falling short? I can't comment, Susie. Okay, but this is kind of important though, because Air New Zealand, if they are part funding this, is this being split three ways equally? Well, I won't comment on that either. I mean, it's between the sponsors in terms of the arrangements they've come to, and I haven't been party to the way that they've done that. But Air New Zealand is owned by the taxpayer. 51% of it is owned by the taxpayer. So this is public money to some extent, isn't it? No, I think that Air New Zealand have made a commercial decision. He has 100 million Twitter followers. It's going to be good for tourism New Zealand. And I think those are the sorts of criteria that they've made their decision. Winston Peters, though, saying, quote, "I know what his going rate is and I know we can't afford it. The idea that this is just part of the normal commercial practice of Air New Zealand won't wash, will it?" Yeah, well, will it wash or not? Well, I think now that we've got the three sponsors there, and that we've been able to explain, how this whole speech works in Auckland, I think there is more information. So, I think that what Air New Zealand have done have made a commercial decision. So it has been essentially a normal commercial practice for Air New Zealand. Is that what you're saying? I think so. Yes. OK, that doesn't appear to be what Winston Peters is saying about this, and he's the minister in charge in this particular case. So is he going to be doing what, an
advert for Air New Zealand as well? Is that something that is going to be the way that essentially the taxpayer gets some gain out of this?
No, I think there isn't any advertising or any those sorts of commercial arrangements with President Obama. I think the fact that he's got 100 million Twitter followers and the fact that the New Zealand landscapes will be profiled when he's there, I think in terms of social media and things like those sorts of things, I think that has a big impact for New Zealand. And for the council, it has a big impact in terms of promoting the importance of the New Zealand-US relationship.
But what's in it for Air New Zealand?
Profiling New Zealand, which is getting Americans to come down here. President Obama, particularly on the West Coast, remains an incredibly popular figure. Okay,
so this is essentially about a big splash, about something that's going to do their bottom line some good?
I think it's a mixture. I think it's both that and also corporate responsibility in terms of making sure that New Zealanders can engage with a really important figure who was the most powerful person on the planet just until very recently.
Not very many people can necessarily, though, get in touch with him, can they?
Well, he's only here for 3 days.
Exactly. But so the situation here then is that Air New Zealand is paying a large amount of money to get Barack Obama to come here, and it would seem that Winston Peters doesn't seem to think that's a good use of the funds.
Well, he made that comment some time ago, and I think things have moved on in terms of all the other sponsors that have come on board. So, I think we've kept the council's kept very close to briefing the government, and we're really pleased that the Prime Minister's, come out and said that she's very keen to meet him.
There's no government contribution at all, is there?
No, not specifically for the speech, but there will be normal costs which are already budgeted for. So his security people will connect with New Zealand Police, and those are costs that, they're relatively small, but the New Zealand Police will have to gear up to be able to support that operation.
Thank you very much for your time, Leon Grice there from the New Zealand United States Council. It's 18